Good morning, you guys. You're watching the walk and talk that I do every week. Got a great topic this week, showing compassion over condemnation. I have a lot of thoughts to share about kind of the state of the world we're in right now, how people would choose to be hateful in their comments versus loving. We're going to get into all of that here on the walk and talk today. Just want to give you an FYI. I am walking next to my house today. And you'll see it's very familiar for those of you that watch my ice bath videos. I'm going to be taking the little path that I take after my ice bath because I actually have a sore right heel. So I have been doing a lot of these ice baths, and I'm noticing that my heels are starting to crack a little bit from all the water exposure. And so I'm limping just a bit with my right foot. So I didn't want to get out there on that trail and then be stuck out there and have to drag myself back home. So I decided to stay pretty close to home. If it gets too painful, I will stop walking. But that's why I'm here on my unusual path of being here next to my house. Now it's very bright sunshine, so it'll be lots of little signs like this where you'll see my face directly in the sun, and then other times you'll see the sun behind me. But hello. Thank you guys for being here. Appreciate you as always joining on this walk and talk. This is the part of the week that Jimmy gets to be more philosophical, talk about things usually outside of the health and wellness community, but indirectly it's still about health. Your mental health is still health. Mindset is still health. Trying to get you to rethink the way you believe things. That's still a part of your overall total health. So very much on brand for Jimmy Moore to talk about these kinds of things. And so today, you guys, the topic I have chosen is one that is born out of where we are in our society right now. Right now, I don't think I remember a time in our definitely in the history of me being alive, which is 50 years, but in most people's lifetime, I don't think we've seen anything like what we're seeing right now when it comes to the interpersonal relationships with other people. There is this notion right now that if you believe differently than someone else, then that someone else is your mortal enemy. They must be eliminated at all costs. You must condemn them, hate on them, cancel them, call them names. That's the norm right now. For some reason, that has become the norm in our society. And everybody seems to be doing it. It's not just relegated to just one group. It seems like everybody is at each other's throats. And I'm observing all of these things. I'm watching people engage in this kind of stuff. And I see how easy it is to get sucked into it. And I try hard not to get sucked into those kind of pissing matches online because they don't really produce anything. All they do is further divide people, further solidify whatever position that they have. And look, this isn't just political. It's cultural, it's everything. And it's gotten ridiculous if you've asked me. The condemnation that people show towards other people, all over frivolous stuff, if you ask me. It's just, none of that is serving humanity well right now. Which is why, and you guys know that follow my work, I am always talking about spreading more love, kindness, and compassion with other people. Compassion is the great antidote to condemnation. You can't condemn someone who you have compassion for. And if you have compassion for people, then that means you have a genuine concern for them. And therein lies the rub. How many people actually care about other people these days? Other than yourself. Yourself does not count. Yes, it counts, but you know what I mean. In this context, you can't just love yourself and that's all that matters. That's very isolationist. That's very laissez-faire. We need to be loving each other. And love comes in the form of, if somebody messes up, give them forgiveness, show them grace, give them the kind of treatment that you wish you would get in that same situation. If you made the same mistake, if you made the same comment, you would hope that somebody would give you grace. And I feel like if we don't get a hold on this issue, guys, humanity's gone. And as someone who tries to live an upstanding life, as someone who tries to live showing empathy to other people, loving other people, feeling other people, this is breaking my heart completely in half. And I know I'm not alone. I know a lot of you guys feel the same way of, wow, society is way out of control. And look, this goes well beyond like the haters and trolls on social media. This bleeds into the real world, but it's very much online as well. I just feel like if we don't get a hold of this monster sooner than later, I don't know how you reverse it. We're already down the path of us versus them on so many lines. I mean, if you just think about all the ways that people are split these days, us versus them, who gets served by that? Who is the benefactor of an us versus them mentality? And please don't get political. I'm well aware of, well, the elites get all the power if they make us little peasants divide. I'm not interested in that discussion. It's definitely interesting to think that way, and I probably tend to agree in that. But I want to go deeper. Don't just look at the surface value of what I'm saying here today. What good happens in the world through all the condemnation, all the division, all the hate? Because I don't see it. I don't see anything positive, anything productive, anything good societally by allowing ourselves to go down that path. So then the question becomes, okay, if societally that's not good, what can we do to try to turn that around? And that's why we're here today. We're here today to talk about the subject of compassion. Now, guys, I took on this mantra of showing love, empathy, kindness, and compassion to other people many years ago. It's been the heartbeat of everything I've done online. If you enjoy my work, probably one of the reasons is you feel like I care. And guess what? I do care. So it's not just a feeling. It's more than a feeling. So all due respect to REO Speedwagon on that one. But yeah, it's so elementary. You know, you think back to kindergarten. You had basic rules in kindergarten, right? Be kind, follow orders, follow instructions, don't hit. You know, you had all these really basic things about being a good human being. Do we need those basic things now for adults? Don't talk ugly to one another. Show love, forgive, have compassion. I'm sorry, you're a grown-ass person. Figure life out by now. I don't buy this, well, they're adults and they can do what they want. Okay, fine. But it's not showing a great example for the next generation. And that next generation is getting taught by TikTok. Let's don't kid ourselves. The next generation's learning about life from videos from strangers on the internet. Now think about that and let it scare the crap out of you, those of you who have kids that age or grandkids that age. So why don't we demonstrate what good behavior is? Why don't we demonstrate how you show love, you show empathy, you show compassion? The problem is that's not taught anywhere. And parents and grandparents, it is your responsibility to teach that to your kids. I never had the privilege of having kids of my own, so I was never able to pass along those kinds of lessons to a prodigy in the Moore household, but I still have the heart. Still have the heart for making sure the next generation understands their very existence long term is predicated on this very topic getting under control. Because if you don't learn how to be human with other people, guess what? Listen to this. When you can't be human to someone, you're actually dehumanizing them. Let that sink in. When you can't be human to someone, that dehumanizes them. And what's the result of that? You can hurl all kind of insults. You can beat on them. Hell, you could kill them. And what would be the consequences? Because you don't see them as human. Because if you did, there's no way on a human level that you would say and do the kinds of things you do around these people. And that's a mentality, guys. The mentality should be, what can I do to connect today? Not what can I do to push people away, but connect, pull them in, let them feel important. Let them know their value. And you might be thinking, well, that's not my job, Jimmy. I don't feel like I need to be the cheerleader for other people. Think about this. If everybody did what I'm suggesting right now, how much better would the world be? How much better would we be if everybody loved on you, cared about you, showed empathy towards you, gave you compassion in the way that you would want to be given that you give the exact same things to other people? Wouldn't you want all that back? I would love it if people treated me like I treat other people, because I'm nothing but kind and gentle and loving and compassionate. I don't always get it great with people that are ugly back towards me, but I do try. And I feel like we're not going to turn the ship around when it comes to society kind of being at this us versus them mentality until we ourselves change. And that's what it's going to start. And look, even if everybody who saw this video times 100 happened, we're still just barely going to make a dent in society. And so people are like, well, what's the point if it's not going to really change anything? Change doesn't happen overnight. Change happens when somebody says, wow, I deserved condemnation for whatever they did or said, but you gave me compassion and it changed my life. We need to remember that kind of thing. We can change people's lives by the way we treat them in the day to day. And every single day, you guys, I wake up with the intention, and I want you to start doing this. I wake up with intention of what can I do to pour into another human, at least one other human's life that day? What can I do to make them laugh? What can I do to help profit them in some way? Mentally, physically, financially. We should all have those goals. That's love. That's kindness. That's compassion. Why is this hard? Why is this not the default? I just don't understand why we have to go to biting, hateful, discouraging, condemnation. I remember when I was younger, I would always hear the phrase, it takes 10 times more muscles to frown than it does to smile. And I never understood that until I kind of went, okay, there's a lot of muscles. And then, oh yeah, it's very easy to smile, very hard to frown. And I look at condemnation and compassion in the same way. It's very hard to be condemning because, listen, as much as you think your condemnation and hateful comments are spewed on the other person, and they are, let's don't get that wrong, they are. As much as that's true, look at how it's impacting you. when you get so emotional in a negative way that you can condemn someone else, a beautiful human being, deserving of love, kindness, and compassion, and yet you give them condemnation, that physiologically impacts you. Yep. You know when you've said something ugly towards someone and you get that little internal feeling within your chest where your heart sinks? That's where that phrase comes from. My heart sunk. It's bad news. It's devastating news. Well, sometimes we self-deliver that bad news. Sometimes when we say things, and I've felt this many times in my life, when you say things and you're just like, ooh, cringe, ooh, I didn't mean to, but it's already out. Physically, you feel that. And then not just physically, emotionally, you feel that. You have regret, you have shame, you have all these feelings. And let's not forget, people who show condemnation very rarely are showing condemnation towards the recipient of their condemnation. And Jimmy Moore knows all about this because I get my very heavy share of negative condemnation in the form of hate comments and ugly comments towards me. And I used to let it upset me, you guys, because it feels so real towards me. And let's not kid ourselves. It is towards me. I am the recipient. But am I the reason why it was spewed? No. Usually those people who spread that kind of condemnation, they are hurting. They've got things going on in their life. They got people that are hurting them. And so the only way they can deal with that is to lash out at you. We have so many people who aren't doing well in their mind, and the only way they can release that is to be ugly towards other people. And I have seen this time after time. And I want you to start looking at people in that way, because part of what keeps this condemnation going in our society, why people keep condemning other people, showing ugliness and hate towards other people, is because they never truly have anybody come along and show them kindness and love and compassion. And so how about you being the chain breaker, so to speak, in that ugly chain that just continues on? Because here's what happens in society. Somebody says something ugly with condemnation towards somebody. That somebody then comments back with ugliness and condemnation. And then a commenter will come in and show more ugliness and condemnation to one side or the other. And then another commenter will come in and hit the opposite side with ugliness and condemnation. So what happened there was one person's ugliness and condemnation for whatever their reasons, having a rough day, going through a difficult time. That one person then spewed it onto this innocent other person who then felt compelled to return in kind the same kind of comment. And then those two interacting created at least two more, usually many more, people to chime in with their own hate and condemnation. See how that works? And then what happens to that? It just sits there. There's no relief from that. There's no forgiveness there. None. There's no compassion in any of that. All right, let's do the same scenario. First person spews the hateful, condemning comment at this person. And then the person responds with love, understanding, compassion, and kindness. What's going to happen? All right, so the guy could double down. The original person who wrote the condemning could double down and say, oh, well, you're still blah, 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 blah. Or they might say, oh, wow, they did hear I was hurting. I wasn't actually insulting them. I was just hoping I could get their attention so they could show me some love. Guys, do you see how this changes that narrative like we talked about on a previous walk and talk? When you can shift over what you believe that condemnation means. The condemnation is not condemnation. The condemnation is a hurt person crying out for help, wishing anybody would just listen to them. hoping that somebody shows them some love, kindness, and compassion. And the moment that we forget about the human on the other side of that comment is, again, the moment we're losing humanity. I know I'm a bit preachy today, and I don't apologize for that, because this is an important topic, and this has weighed heavy on me, you guys, lately, that I feel like we, as individuals, could all do what I'm talking about here today, to show more compassion for people and less condemnation. And I get it. This is a supercharged society now, where any opinion is automatically going to get inflated to bigger than what it is. Any response is going to be inflated to bigger than it is, and people get their feelings hurt. And then there's the whole, well, if you're going to say that, you're not allowed to be a part of, and so you're canceled. And I don't get any of that, how it's in any way productive. And I refuse to participate. Those of you who watch my work, I will post sometimes the interactions I have with people being ugly towards me and showing condemnation towards Jimmy Moore. And so I will post those videos, those screenshots of people making those comments, and then my response. And I show those to demonstrate how you can show compassion. You don't have to return ugliness and condemnation with more ugliness and condemnation. You could very well be the reason why that person turns around whatever bad day that they're having. You could. And I will go to my dying grave someday, you guys, believing this. I will. I'll go to my dying grave believing that when you're a human being, you show another human being compassion. And it's always going to be better than the alternative. Because the alternative is continuing with the ugliness and the hate and the condemnation. That's not going to end well. Ever, 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 ever. So let's talk a little bit about compassion, since this is what I'm charging you with today to go be and spread more of. Compassion is being there for somebody, offering them a word of encouragement, being a voice of sanity. Because a lot of people who spread condemnation, they're just looking for anybody to just make sense of what they're going through. And as the survivor of childhood trauma, and I had a pretty bad thing that happened in my adult life, all I can tell you is showing that kind of kindredness would have gone a long way for me had I gotten it. In my life, I haven't seen many people do what I'm sharing today. But if I had, I think my life might have turned out different. Now, my life's not horrible. I'm not trying to say, oh, I had a hard life and it sucks. I've had a great life, but it's because of my own ability to figure out all the things I'm teaching you now. There were moments in my life where I didn't know if I wanted to live. I didn't know if life even mattered. And when you get to that place in your head, it's sad. It's dangerous. It's not conducive to production in society. And it's what I always try to do with these walk and talks, is give you information that helps you be a more productive person in society. Because we all look for purpose and meaning. And part of the purpose and meaning in your life that I'm instilling in you today is your job, if you choose to accept it, is to go be that loving, kind, and compassionate human to another human. Even if they're being ugly to you, even if they're showing condemnation towards you, you show them those things. And watch how your life changes. And watch how their life changes. Not everybody. Some people will hear that and they'll be taken so aback by it because they expect when they throw condemnation at you, especially online. They expect you to come back with ugliness. I'm just kind as kind can be to people when they're ugly to me. And it has served me well. It'll always serve you well to be a good human, even when other humans aren't being good. All right, so let's talk about the various ways you can show compassion. And I know I've been talking about a lot of interactions with other people, but let's talk about the most important person to you. You ready? It's you. You need to learn how to show yourself compassion. Do you default to that? Do you find yourself desiring to give yourself compassion? I think most people beat up on themselves harder than anybody else in the world. And for the life of me, I don't understand it. Why do you beat on yourself? When all else fails and everyone else falls away, all you got left is you. And so if you destroy you and then everybody else leaves your life, who do you got? You got nobody at that point. So learn to give yourself compassion. And the first thing that you need to do is realize you are a human being too. And all that entails. You're gonna mess up. Let's stop with the whole nonsense that, well, I can never mess up. Because if I mess up, I'm a bad human. If I mess up, then what will people think of me? Well, screw that. Jimmy has messed up many times in his life. Many times. Do you think I'm a bad human today? I would argue most of you probably don't think I'm a bad human. Why do you believe that? Because despite the mistakes and despite the things that I've done in my humanness is also expressed in positive ways. With the work I do, the way I carry myself in public, the things that I do in selflessness for other people. That's the overall, I guess, picture of why you can't really throw the baby out with the bathwater, as the expression says. And yet many do. Well, you're not this, you're not that, so therefore, you're useless to society. So show yourself that humanity. Show yourself that compassion that you desire, because then it enables you to give compassion. You can't show compassion for other people if you, get ready. You can't show compassion for other people if you don't show compassion for yourself. It's true. Because why would you show compassion to others if the most valuable person in your life, you, don't have compassion? We get cold-hearted, guys. We allow outward influences to dictate how we feel about situations. But if you have compassion for yourself and forgiveness and allowing yourself to make mistakes, that makes you more apt to show compassion for people who make mistakes, who aren't perfect. You see how that works? Pretty amazing, right? Thank you, Dawn Marie, for the badge. And guys, if you want to buy a badge and you like the work I do, there is a little button down there that lets you get a badge. So the second thing you can do to show compassion to yourself is quit beating up on yourself. Oh my God. How many people lament over and over and over again choices that they make that didn't turn out exactly great? I would argue a lot. I would argue most people mess up, fail, feel like they hurt themselves or others, and they just like wallow in that. Stop beating yourself up about things. The past is the past. What's done is done. It would be easy to relive that over and over and over again in your mind. But in order to show compassion to yourself, you have to forgive yourself for those things and stop beating yourself up over things. It's not serving you well. It's not helping you in any way. And then acknowledge where you still have struggles. That's another way, you guys. Process those emotions that you're feeling about things and that you're struggling with. Because if you don't, you sweep it under the rug and pretend like it's going to go away. Guess what? It never goes away. Never goes away. It just festers there. I want you to imagine those emotions as fresh produce. Okay? What happens to fresh produce if you don't eat them within a certain period of time? They start to rot. They start to stink. And then sometimes they get to the point where flies are attracted to it. You see, it turns into a really bad thing really fast when you don't address it, when you don't process it, in this case, eat it. Think of your emotions in the same way. Your emotions in the day-to-day are fresh produce. And if you don't fully process how you feel about things, or at least start the process, how you feel about things, that's going to start to rot. It's going to start to stink. It's going to start to attract flies. And in this case, the flies would be like other emotions, anger, discontentment, suicidal thoughts. You see how that analogy works? And I think it's true. I think if we don't learn the fine art of managing emotions well, that's not going to end well for us. It's not. And then forgive yourself. When you show compassion, the number one thing you can do, whether it's for other people or for yourself, is to forgive. And so forgive yourself. Accept you're not perfect. Do all those things. And it's helpful. And one practice that you can do in the mornings, you guys, if you want to learn how to do this and do this well, is practice mindfulness. Okay? Mindfulness, you could meditate, you could do positive affirmations. And I know some people think that's, if you tend to be kind of uptight and anxious, depressed, mindfulness goes a long way. It really does. It's deep breathing exercises, sunshine exposure. All these things can set your mind in a good place. And when your mind's in a good place, you're more apt to be compassionate, not just towards yourself, but towards other people. All right. So that's how you are compassionate to yourself. Let's turn our attention to how you can be compassionate to other people. And those of you who came in late, we're talking about compassion over condemnation here in today's walk and talk. If you missed the first part of my monologue, oh my gosh, go back and watch the replay because I dropped a lot of bombs in there. This is why I love this show. I don't really prepare everything I say, everything just from my heart. And sometimes I say things and in the midst of saying it, I get a thought and I'm like, hang on, I got to get this out. And so we had a lot of that within the first 30 minutes of my walk and talk today. So if you came in late, go watch the replay for the first 30 minutes. But welcome. Thanks for being here. We're talking about having compassion over condemnation. And so I just went over the ways you show compassion for yourself. Now I'm going to talk about how you show compassion for other people. And the best thing you can do is show kindness. Guys, I have tried to demonstrate this in my work online, that kindness is what makes the world go round. If you can be kind to someone else, no matter what their demeanor is towards you, show them kindness. I have seen that turn around so many negative comments. All I had to do was be kind back to them. That just happened about 3 weeks ago. I told that story on the walk and talk of this lady that wrote a really ugly comment about how I'm not a great representation of the keto and carnivore message and doesn't look like it's sustainable for me, blah, blah, blah. Okay, cool. So I was kind back and I said, hey, thanks. I appreciate your input. I disagree that I don't add value talking about this in this community. No, I'm not the perfect Adonis body, but I'm doing all kinds of things to help myself. If you'd like to have a conversation about it, I would love to chat with you. Well, that kind response instigated her to reach out to me on social media, on DM. And sure enough, it turned her around. Sure enough, she said, "Oh my gosh, your response made me look inward and go, what did I say?" And then she admitted to me, "Look, I'm having a bad day and I took it out on you." So see, guys, it had nothing to do with Jimmy. It had nothing at all to do with me. Now, she still said what she said, and so she voraciously apologized for it. And we ended up chatting in the DM for like an hour, went back and forth, and she's like, "You're actually a cool dude." So it's like, thank you. I try to be cool in my life. Yeah, sure. And then after about an hour of DMing, I was like, "Hey, let's talk on the phone." So I give her my phone number and we jibber jabber for another hour. And at the end of that, she's like, I read you wrong. I got you all wrong. You're a really nice, kind gentleman. And that was probably the nicest comment she could have said about me. And it all started, guys, because I was kind to her. That's it. That's all it took. Be kind. That's how you show compassion to people. Kindness goes a long way, which is why I don't like the ugly culture we're in. And anytime I see the ugliness, I always try to inject kindness into the conversation. You try that. Yeah, you might get mocked. You might get a few ugly things turned back at you. But if you stay kind and never stoop to their level, watch what happens. You're going to change somebody. Another thing we can do to show compassion to other people is respect their boundaries. If somebody asks you to do something and then you don't do that something, you're not showing them very much respect. And I think people set up boundaries for their own reasons. Look, my best friend is Brittany. Brittany and I have boundaries with one another, and gladly so. When her husband is home from work, he's home 2 days in a row. My boundary, or her boundary with me, and I respect it, is I don't contact her while her husband's home so that she could have full attention with her husband. That's a pretty cool boundary, right? And I respect that. And we need to have those boundaries with one another, and having that would be helpful. If somebody says, I'm really not a hugger, I'm not going to hug somebody that says they're not a hugger. I'm not going to say, "Oh, stop kidding yourself," and go in for the hug and make them feel awkward. And that's another thing. Brittany hates hugs, and Jimmy loves to hug. So I'm just like, So I don't see her that often. But I was like, how about we compromise and do a fist bump? So. Next way you can show compassion to people. Offer them some hope. I think all people who share condemnation and ugliness, all they're looking for is somebody throw me a bone. Somebody tell me that the way I feel now, that the way my life is not going to always be this way. Give me some hope. Give me some reason to keep living. Give me some reason to stop being angry and lashing out at other people. So we can all do that. We can show compassion to give people hope. Wow, here's somebody who at least hears me. I get DMs like that all the time, you guys. People go, "I listen to your messages on your walk and talk and even in your podcasts, and I just feel like you show such kindness and love for people. I can keep going." Guys, do you know what that does for you when you get that kind of feedback from people? It's incomprehensible to think something as basic as being kind, loving, and compassionate towards people could have that profound of an impact. But it does. And we have to remember that. We have to remember that. Also, another way we show compassion to other people, support whatever dreams they have in their life. Instead of like discouraging people, well, that's not going to work. Well, that's sure to fail. I don't know why you're even trying that. How about you say, you know what? That sounds really ambitious, and if anybody can do it, you can do it. You say something like that, guys. You are showing such love and compassion to that person that if you're not already friends, that'll make you friends. I think that's all we're looking for in the friendships in our life. Give me a little hope. Lift my life up in some way. All my friends will tell you one of my things is to be an encourager. If I can encourage other people and lift them up and help them in some way, I feel like I've done my job as their friend. And that's me showing compassion and love towards them for the value they are in my life. And I don't take that anything but seriously, to be intentional about all of that. How about validating their feelings? Rather than saying, oh, just get over it about something that they tell you. What a horrible thing to tell someone. Just get over it. No, the compassionate side says, wow, that's just so difficult. And I can't imagine what it's like to go through that. Would you like to share more? How can I help? These kinds of things. That's compassion. That's love for that person. And we can easily do that, you guys. And then finally, if they mess up, forgive them. Forgive them. Good old-fashioned forgiveness. I know I've done a walk and talk previously on forgiveness, so I won't belabor this point, but showing forgiveness is such a key part of life. And it's something we've lost in society. People mess up these days, and the mob comes after them and wants to lynch them and hang them by their toes and let them know that they're not allowed to be in the public square anymore. That's the norm now. There's no room for forgiveness. There's no room for second chances. I don't care who you are or what you've done. If you're a human being, you're allowed to mess up. And we've got to give each other permission that we're allowed to mess up. Now, if you mess up, and then you mess up, and then you mess up, and then you mess up, and you mess up, and you mess up, and you mess up, and you mess up, the same thing over and over and over, you're not showing any propensity to change. That's not what I'm talking about. People always say, well, what if they do it again? Well, there has to be a heart right on both sides. You have the heart right of saying, okay, I forgive you. Now let's talk about this. Anything I can do to help support you so you don't do this again, and they just blatantly repeat it over and over and over. That's a different situation than somebody messed up one time. They said something stupid in the moment. Again, might have been having tough times in their life. Something going on. And they said something. Well, we can forgive that. And we can talk about that openly. This is how that made me feel. And then just have that honest conversation. Rather than, well, because you said that, you're out of my life forever. I have nothing to do with you anymore. You're not allowed in society anymore. Again, I go back to what good does that do? It doesn't do any good in my eyes. All right, so we've talked about compassion for yourself, and I just finished compassion for others. How about to people who are complete strangers? And this is probably applicable to the internet, because most people are complete strangers on the internet. And people who are disadvantaged. These are the people who need our compassion as well. The poor. Number one, don't judge them. Don't judge them, especially like a poor person or homeless person, or someone with low means, low IQ, whatever. Oh, wow, I guess they didn't really come from a great family. What a horrible thing to think, by the way. We don't know where people came from. I came from a very low middle class, upper lower class kind of family. My grandmother was on welfare. I remember eating welfare cheese as a little kid. She would feed us as a snack, that big block of welfare cheese. And I didn't think anything of it at the time, but she lived in like a big trailer in Tennessee and had all of us grandchildren around, a bunch of us, a bunch of girls, a few guys, and we would all pack into Meemaw's house, and it was a trailer, and there was trash everywhere. I found out later she had a 5th grade education. So people could say, well, look at that backwoods podunk family that Jimmy came from, and make judgments. I think I've done okay, Meemaw. I think I came out the other side of that experience of seeing you in that situation and made something of my life. And I have. All right, so again, other people, strangers, the poor, don't criticize. This is such a way to show compassion. It's easy to criticize people and kick people when they're down. Don't criticize them. Don't say they're lazy. And on the internet, let's go one step further. When you see someone who is bigger and they're on some kind of a health journey, weight loss, health, fitness, whatever, and they're bigger and they're out there working their ass off doing some hard things, the last thing you need to be to that person is discouraging. The number one thing you should be is their biggest cheerleader and help them feel encouraged, help them feel motivated, because back to the showing compassion to yourself earlier, you want to talk about your biggest critic? It's someone on a health journey who doesn't look the part yet. That's the biggest critic. And that person could sure use lots of love and kindness and compassion in the moment. Don't criticize them. Give them the encouragement that they desperately crave and desire in every way. Also, talk to people kindly. Gosh, how hard. Even the complete strangers, even the people who are ugly towards you. And that last one is hard, but how hard is it to just speak kindly to people? Give them a tone that says, I care about you. I think the last 2 years have played a huge role in people having a higher issue of mental issues. And I don't say that in a derogatory way. It's just fact. Go look up the statistics. Mental health is at pretty much an all-time high. Mental health issues. People dealing with anxiety, depression, suicidal thoughts, mental illness. The events of the last 2 years certainly did not help with that. And that's on top of all the regular stuff that people were already dealing with. So showing people that kindness and talking to them in a manner that restores their humanity again is going to be so helpful. Also, advocate on behalf of other people. You want to show compassion to a group of people that you think are downtrodden? Showing compassion to them is to advocate on their behalf. Use your voice to speak for them. And guys, I do this all the time. People oftentimes, when I post something about my weight or post something about people who have weight still in their body despite being on a health journey, I'll get all these comments that people will say, oh, well, it's okay. Ignore the haters, Jimmy. You're not that bad. And I'm like, guys, you don't understand. I'm not talking for Jimmy Moore alone. I'm speaking up on behalf of all the people who look like me, aspire to have my mindset going through the journey, because there's discouraged people out there. And all they hear is condemnation of, in fact, just yesterday, somebody wrote something about, I thought Jimmy Moore was keto. Why is he so fat? You know, that kind of thing. And so people get those comments and they need someone to speak up on their behalf. And Jimmy got a voice. Jimmy got an ability to talk. So I use it. I use it for that purpose. And so anytime you see me talk about stigma with people with weight and on a health journey, it's never about Jimmy. It's not. I'm in a great place with all that. I always write from a heart of compassion for the people who need that message. And so I speak up on their behalf. And almost invariably, I get a lot of comments that say, thank you. Somebody said out loud what I've been thinking. And I like doing that. It's my superpower. How about offering helpful resources for those people who are in vulnerable situations? That shows compassion to them. And then, of course, it should be obvious. Show them some empathy. They've gone through something in their life that's gotten them to this point that they're just downtrodden. And showing them some empathy, showing them some dignity, helping them restore their dignity. I don't think of anything else you could do to help a fellow human out than to show them respect, dignity, and compassion. That's it. That's it. All right. So let's shift over to your work. So those of you that are in a job, you've got coworkers, bosses, people you interact with. How do you show compassion to them? Well, if there's a new employee that shows up, that is frightening. If you've ever been a new employee at a company and everybody around you is already well established and they're all looking at you like, who's the new person? How cool would it be if you were the one that went over to them and you became their buddy and said, hey, I was new once. Let me show you around the ropes a little bit. I'll be your advocate in the office. Immediately you've got a friend. And immediately you have somebody that knows the definition of compassion. How cool is that, right? You could also offer them some guidance. Say, hey, I ran into this issue when I got hired. I want to help you avoid that. So help them, offer your experience and your wisdom at the company. So offer guidance. How about lending them a helping hand when you see them struggling when they first start, because everybody does when you don't really know what to do with the job you're at. You can struggle a little bit. And so what you do with that is you help them out, and that shows them compassion. How about offering to cover their shift? That if they needed to be off work on a day, say, hey, I'll cover for you and you can cover for me. And they're like, yeah. So that's showing compassion. Give them praise when they're doing a job well done. That helps encourage people, especially in a brand new job. And so all of those things are great ways you could do this at work. And I feel like most of our interpersonal relationships all come down to, you have a choice, guys. You can choose to be ugly, condescending, and condemning to other people, or you can choose to be loving, kind, compassionate, and I would argue human with other people. That's what's lost. That's what's lost in this day and age. No more humanness anymore. And the sooner that we become human and humane again, is the sooner that we can change this society around from a world full of condemnation into a world full of people giving and getting compassion. All right, guys, I'm done with my soliloquy. I want to hear what you guys have to say. As always, I'm going to scroll back to the top, but if you have comments, please leave them down there. Would love to interact with you about this topic. I hope you enjoyed that here today. See what you have to say, scrolling all the way back to the top. Cherish says, good morning. Hello, hello. Bulletproof says, go Jimmy. With the sunshine and a sunflower and various flowers. Yes, I mowed my grass the last couple of days, so all the little sunflower weeds, long gone. Tammy says, rub favorite cream or tallow and wrap in saran wrap overnight. I forget what that's in reference to. Rub favorite cream or tallow and wrap in saran wrap. Oh, my heels you're talking about. Yeah, so if you missed at the beginning, the reason I'm next to my house rather than out on my trail today is I've been getting in that ice bath every day, and my heels, with all that water every day, my heels have started to crack. And so yesterday I noticed it when I was walking after the ice bath, that I was having a slight little limp in my right foot. And there's some pain, nerve ending or something in the back of my heel on my right foot that's pretty painful. I'm trying to hold back tears because it does hurt quite a bit, but I didn't want to get out there on the trail, especially with all the big hills and everything out there, and get stuck having to drag myself back home. So thank you for that. Great tip, Tammy. David says, good morning. Hello. Dawn Marie says, morning, man, this is early. Thanks for sharing this topic. So worth waking up for. Yeah, sorry, I moved back the time from 11 a.m. Eastern to 8 a.m. Eastern because by 11 a.m. Eastern here, it's supposed to be almost 80 degrees. Now, this is upper 50s right now, maybe low 60s. It's good, but I'm already still breaking a sweat, and I'm okay to sweat, but it's just, I get very easily overheated when it gets much above like 72 degrees. So yeah, last Sunday I got back and I was just so drained. I was so hot. So that's why I'm doing it early. So when I come back in June for these walk-in talks, because this is my last walk-in talk until I come back in June, I will definitely be doing 8 o'clock in the morning on Sundays. It'll be way hot by then. CKS says, good morning, Jimmy. God is speaking to me today because my Bible study time this morning was all about compassion. Well, how about that? There are no coincidences, as Henry Blackaby says. He's the one that wrote the book Experiencing God. He calls these God incidences. So good job. Glad we're in cahoots today. Let's just put it that way. Dawn Marie has lots of hearts. Thank you for that. Bulletproof says, some people refuse to make amends. And look, that's on them. I think if we have an expectation that people should make amends and they don't, that's nothing to do with us. All we can do is offer amends to those people who are willing. And if someone's not willing, then you really can't do anything about that. You have to have peace in your heart. And look, I know that's hard. I had to cut off my own dad, all communication. It's been over 2 years now. Had to cut it all off because when I started talking about my childhood trauma stuff publicly, he pitched a fit. I was just talking to my mom about this yesterday, how he pitched such a fit about it when I started talking about it. And yet he's shown no propensity to want to make amends, hasn't even tried to reach out to me, nothing. And that just confirms further, in my mind, that I made the right decision. Because he liked the version of me that tried to pretend like what happened to me as a kid didn't happen. He liked that version of me. It helped him. Psychologically, it's a lot harder when someone shines the light on the things you're doing than those people who just say, oh, okay, I'll go along to get along. No, bro, you're not going through life without at least acknowledging it. And in this case, the acknowledgement is he doesn't have his son to talk to. And that's on him. He could easily make amends with me, but he, for whatever reason, has chosen not to. Cherish says, lifting others up feels so much better than tearing them down. Oh, it does. And it is. Like, think about physiologically, mentally, when you lift someone else up, you almost feel like a weight comes off your shoulders. You almost feel euphoric in your brain, like you took a drug of some sort. Whereas when you show contempt and tear people down, what happens? you feel heavier, don't you? You feel the weight of the heaviness of that scorn. And then you feel psychologically regret, shame, anger, whatever the feeling you have. And I don't know about you, I'd rather have the former over the latter every single time. We have to support one another because we are already judged because we eat and look out for our health differently than the norm. Yeah, that's the disappointing part in the health and wellness community, keto, carnivore, whatever, is there does seem to be quite a bit of tribalism and nitpicking over little things. And I always tell people, we are a very small pond in the big picture, and we need to rally together. Squabbling over little differences, which by the way has happened since the inception of me being online. And so that's gonna always be an issue unless you make it not an issue. Don't condemn, show love, show compassion. Bulletproof says, I can't live with the burden of hurting other people. I don't know how some do. Well, they have no conscience. There are some people, Bulletproof, who literally can detach themselves from consciousness. And I would argue people get to that point because they themselves have been hurt and not given compassion. The whole phrase of hurt people, I think is more true than we even realize. And when you have that mentality of someone who's hurting you is they themselves hurt, it gives you empathy for them. It gives you a new perspective on, whoa, they're only hurting me because they got hurt by someone. And look, I'll get my dad as an example. My dad beat the crap out of me when I was a teenager. Talked very openly about the physical and mental and psychological abuse I went through. Well, he himself was also beaten by his dad. And so that's what he knew. That's how he knew to interact. And in his mind, hey, I never got any love, kindness, and compassion when I was a kid from my own dad. So why should I give love, kindness, and compassion to my own kid? Now, as fucked up as that sounds, that really makes sense as a justification of why he did what he did. Yep. I have trouble not thinking of those who hurt me. I pray for them, but I can't get them out of my mind. Look, that's human nature. If someone hurts you, that is a very deep reaction in your brain. And trust me, I've been hurt by some people, like truly hurt by some people in this life. And you don't have an easy time of how you deal with that. But you can have a better time when you put the right perspective on the hurt that happened, which is why I talk over and over and over again about reframe it as they did this to me, to they did this because this happened to them. And so reframing it in that way takes the onus off of them for the action they took. Not that they're not culpable, but that there's a deeper reason why they did that to you. It wasn't that it was just some random direct action. No, it was a direct action that was a consequence of something that happened to them. Which is why I wish we would talk to each other. Why I wish we would stop canceling each other. Oh, you're not allowed to talk about such and such anymore because you said one bad thing 10 years ago in a tweet. How ridiculous. How ridiculous that we assume people no longer have value because of something they said 10 years ago, 5 years ago, hell, 1 year ago. What happened. Use it as an opportunity to say, okay, that wasn't cool, but let's grow from it. Let's become better as a result of it. How hard is that? I don't get it. Linda says, so interesting, but missed most of the first part as Lonnie came out on a walk with me. Well, hi, Lonnie. Yes, go back and watch the first part of this walk and talk if you came in late. I have been feeling these walk and talks this last month. I don't know if you've noticed that, but I've stepped up my game a bit because I feel like these are the kind of topics that I bring up on this show that deserve more time, deserve more thinking about, because this is the very essence of life. You can't go on a diet, you can't go on a fitness and health journey if you don't have some of this stuff down. And so I like this as kind of groundwork type of content that then helps you on your health journey and in life itself. So happy to be of service. Kira said, I invited my son's father for Christmas last year to stay at my house. It blew him away. He was shocked and choked up. I did it for my son, but he didn't show up. He used to beat me, and I'm fearless. Yes, wow. That is big, Kira. You allowed an abusive former husband to come stay with you. Wow. And yes, you are quite fearless. You guys, Kira is so tiny. What are you, like 5'1", 5'2", Kira? And I'm 6'3", and I remember when we met in person, she came to my birthday party a couple months back, and I had to like bend down way down to hug Kira. I'm like, you are tiny, but you are one fierce mamma jamma. That was funny. Kira said, I scared him to death with my kindness. Yes, I'm sure you did. Dawn Marie says, kill him with kindness. Yes. There's Sharon. She said, I made it. You did make it. Kira says, last Christmas I learned kindness can be used as a weapon. Oh, well, I don't like that terminology, using kindness as a weapon. I guess a tool? We'll say tool. Defeated my former bully, full-on savage level. Yes, I think you use it as a tool in your toolbox. I guess it could be a weapon. A defensive weapon. When I think weapon, I think like sword, gun. But in this case, or jiu-jitsu, hands in your case. But in this case, it's like a defensive weapon. You think you can hurt me, I'm gonna blow your mind. Come stay with me. Man who used to beat me, come stay with me, because I ain't afraid of your bitch ass anymore. I could see how that would be a flex of sorts. I love it. Sharon says, I'm a meemaw too. Yes, we love our meemaws. I lost mine. She was 80 years old when she died. She was the oldest grandparent I had. I lost both of my grandfathers before I was even old enough. Well, one before I was born, and the other one when I was like 2, 3. So I never knew either one of my grandfathers. Both died in their early 50s. And then my mom's mom, Grandma Eva, she died at 50 years old. So we were just talking about this yesterday when I called my mom. I said, Mom, it just dawned on me. Grandma died at the age that I am right now. And then my mom revealed why. I never knew why. She had some kind of a disease brought on by an abortion she had. Back in that day, if you weren't married and you got pregnant, I mean, you were the scum of society. So she went to some back alley, quote, doctor who removed the baby from her in a very ugly, nasty way. And it left her scarred inside. And it led to her demise at 50 years old. Thankfully, they did have my mom. And because they had my mom, I'm here. So, Cherish says, please and thank you for going a long way when interacting at work. Yes. If you say please and thank you, that definitely does. Kindness, compassion, it's not hard. Not hard. Practicing stewardship and being a servant leader creates loyal relationships in your work and in your life. Yes. Well done, Cherish. I agree. What a wonderful topic for this time in our country. Thank you, Sharon. I always like to bring things that are cutting edge, prescient in this day and age. And there's so much I could talk about with the shit show that is life right now in the world. I did not live through the 60s like you did, Sharon. I was born in 1971, so I didn't get to see the 60s. I did take a class on the 60s in college, and we got to see everything that happened in the 60s. And I always imagine, man, what would it be like to be in such a tumultuous time in the world? Well, I don't have to imagine anymore. We're living it. Mary says, one of my son's friends came over last night. I know his mom, but only superficially. He was recounting the abuse that he suffered as a child under her, and I was totally gobsmacked. I had no idea. Look, most people who go through trauma, they don't talk about it because the abuser is so good at hiding who they really are to the world. My dad was such a charmer. He was a businessman in the area. He worked in law enforcement. I think at one time he ran for sheriff. Like he had this persona in society that he was this good guy. And he would always help people if they had trouble with their heating and air or something. He'd come over and he'd fix it. And I remember I would go on him on a lot of those trips where he's helping people. And at the end of it, how much do I owe you? Oh, you don't owe me anything. And so in his mind, he was building up character points in the minds of other people. Now, to what purpose was that character points being built? So he could beat the shit out of his kid behind the scenes and nobody would say a word or nobody would suspect? Maybe. Or other bad behavior? Maybe. I don't know. But, yeah. And I've had other things in my life that showed the same thing. People are just like, whoa, I had no idea. But what you don't see is what goes on behind closed doors. And that's the truth. And that's the reality. So when things happen that can kind of seem shocking, I always take a step back and go, okay, what part of this puzzle did I not see? And it'll bring things into a clearer picture. Bulletproof says some people refuse to make amends because someone evil got in their ear. Oh, yeah. Tell me about it. I know. Mary followed up her comment about the person who came over and talked about abusive relationship with their mom. He now has amazing grace for his mom. Look, I did the same thing with my dad for many years. Showed him grace. And I feel like he took advantage of that. Because if you can show grace to somebody and then they're contrite and admit what they did and show regret for what they did, I think that's the way to handle it. But when you show grace to someone and they still spit in your face by refusing to acknowledge the obvious, that's a tough one. So if she's never acknowledged it, and yet he still gives her grace, kudos to him. He's a bigger man than Jimmy Moore. Because I have a tough time with that one. People are brainwashed and don't know it. Yeah, some people. Mary says, it sounds like his dad is codependent and found it hard to stand up to his wife. The kicker, the family's quite prominent in the community. Yeah. Look, I mean, people can put on a good face and people get shocked. Oh, wow. Like I remember those TV shows that had the murder of a family. He was unsuspecting in a beautiful suburb with 3 kids and a beautiful wife. And they were all found dead. The man is now the killer. How could it be? Those used to be popular on like NBC, Dateline NBC and different things. And it opened your eyes that possibly anything could happen at any time to anybody. And we can't put people up on a pedestal, or we can't think that what you see of people is the whole picture. Not always. Not always. So Danielle came in late today. Danielle came in late today. I am walking in my neighborhood. This is my house. So those of you that watch my ice bath videos at 5 p.m. Eastern during 2022, this is the path that I walk after my ice bath. But today, because I woke up and my right heel is cracked from all those ice baths, I think. It was a lot of pain in the right heel, and so I've got somewhat of a limp. So I didn't want to get out on my normal walking trail and get stuck. And so I decided to come out here. I can still get in the walk. I've been walking 75 minutes, so I'm getting a pretty good walk in today, you guys. And decided to do my walk and talk out here. So yes, very beautiful day. Bulletproof says some people are just great fakers. And look, I feel like people are fake for whatever their reasons. And maybe in their mind, they're not being fake. They're just covering their pain. And that's the way they do it. Whatever the reason, I do wish people could be more real and authentic with others. It's a horrible society that people walk around not being themselves. Bad social commentary on society today. But guys, thank you so much for being here today on the Walk and Talk. Compassion and condemnation are complete opposites. We need to be choosing compassion over condemnation and no longer allowing ourselves to go down that rabbit hole of thinking hate and scorn and condemnation is in any way better than love, kindness, and compassion. As always, thank you so much for watching the Walk and Talk. I do these over on Instagram Live for those of you watching on the replay on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, or even here on Instagram. Go follow me at Livin' Low Carb Man, LIVIN LOWCARBMAN, 8 a.m. Eastern Time on Sundays during these warmer months, because it's pretty warm out here today already. And so come join me for the Walk and Talk. I will be off the entire month of May. I'm writing a new book, you guys, and I want to pump that out. So every available opportunity in the month of May, I'm going to be writing on cold therapy clarity. I also have another book I'm writing with Brittany, my co-author, One Step Deeper Journal for Trauma, which, by the way, One Step Deeper Journal, the foundations, go to onestepdeeperjournal.com, and within a matter of days, it'll be fully available. And I'll tell you guys a secret. Shh, I haven't told anybody this. It's available on Amazon right now. If you go to amazon.com and you type in One Step Deeper Journal, you will see 2 entries for the journal. You'll see the hardback book, the paper book, and then you will see the Kindle version. Well, the Kindle version has the picture of the front cover with the C inside. And so you can look inside the book and it will show you the first 25 pages. So you'll get to read all the introduction, all of Brittany's first story, all of my first story, Brittany's first entry, and I think it truncates about my first entry on day 2 of the journal. So you'll get access to all that if you want to go look at it. Of course, you can purchase the Kindle and then the hardback. The reason we haven't announced it yet is they're supposed to put them all under one roof at some point. But for some reason, it's still stuck in limbo where the hardback book is on one page, the Kindle is on another page. The hardback book doesn't even have a picture of the book, but the Kindle does. So go check it out if you want to go look that up. I have not announced that anywhere, so you guys get the exclusive premiere here on my Walk and Talk. And as always, come join me at 5 p.m. Eastern. I will be getting into a nice nice cold. I'm very hot, so I was like, a nice hot, nice cold ice bath, 32 degree Fahrenheit ice bath. Would love to have you join live. And until next time, we'll see you then. Bye, guys.